What is happening, guys? I'm Dan. Welcome back to the channel. We're diving into more What is in My Cellar series, which has been horribly terrible. None of my beers have been aged properly, guys. I don't think it's worked out in my favor. Again, if I've dropped other reviews, you know that a lot of them have been oxidized, unfortunately. I'm gonna hope today's a little different because this is a can and it's coming from Birmingham. It is the Flying Buffalo Mole from Griffin, guys. 12% ABV, barrel-aged imperial stout. Coming from 10/29/19 on the bottom, so nearly 5 years old to the day. It's in the can. I'm going to hope this held up a little bit better than all the bottles that were in my cellar, but BrewMaster Special Reserve. This Imperial Stout was artfully aged for 9 months in bourbon barrels with coffee beans from our friends at Modern Times. Selected Colombia Silva, a direct trade coffee from Maya Cafeina of Accresco imports. Grown at an altitude of 1,800 meters above sea level. Okay. Chocolate, spices, chili, peppers, picante, Flying Buffalo Mole. So they did this every year for a long time. Don't know if they still do the Flying Buffalo series. I think they do. But we'll dive in, hope for the best. It's at room temperature. It is not cold by any means. And let's get a fierce pour. See if it's any good, guys. 5 years later. Pretty dark as I poured it, but not the thickest I've ever seen at 12%. Again, 5 years old. Nice little silky head retention, little dark beige, dark brown in there, a little bit of cola in the glass. Let's get an aroma. Ooh. Still got those like reminiscent spicy kind of feels. Not just coffee, you're getting the coffee roasted beans, you're getting this like peppery kind of spice on the nose, just a touch of it entering the nostrils, and it's almost like it's some sort of chili pepper, right? It's some sort of serrano pepper, that's what it's reminiscent of. Smells spicy. Maybe a little bit of cinnamon, right? What's in this again? Masters chocolate, Mexican chocolate. Yeah. I think there's cinnamon in this, but it's not overwhelming. It still smells spicy, chocolatey, you know, the Mexican milk chocolate. It smells like it's got a little bit of heat from the, not really woody barrel per se, but it's coming from the pepper predominantly. Let's just dive in, guys. I'm not going to keep this too long because I don't know if this is good. It smells a lot better than some of my others in bottles, so the cans have maybe held up better. Let's check this out 5 years later. Cheers. Ooh, still got a kick. So it's still spicy on the back end. There is definitely some Mexican milk chocolate in there, a little bit of dark roasted rich coffee coming into play. It feels spicy though on the back of the throat. Like it's prickly, right? It's prickly and it's got that fluidity of just like a serrano pepper. I know it's some sort of chili pepper, but Mexican chocolate spices, chili, hot peppers, they don't say which kind, but this is actually not bad. It's held up. It's that chocolatey mole, that Mexican nice, rich dish that you're accustomed to getting if you know authentic Mexican food. This is really tasty, actually, still all these years later. I'm not going to lie. Not my favorite beer as a whole coming from Griffin. I like a lot of their other offerings, but this one's just different. I could take it in small doses. Still dry without being too sweet, and still spicy without being too overpowering. A little bit of barrel, but it's hard to reach for it because the serrano / chili peppers are reaching to your throat first before you get any of that wood, before you get any of that oily bourbon. There's none of that in there. That's kind of faded. Not that I remember this being too abundantly rich in the bourbon department. I feel like this was not an overwhelmingly dominant barrel that hits the throat or hits the taste buds. Again, still the Mexican chocolates, the chili peppers are the most dominant factor in this beer. It's still rich without being too sweet, and it's still dry and roasty as well. So again, the spice and the rich kind of roast playing into one another is really good on the palate. If you don't like spice, you might not like this. It's still a little bit on the edge of spicy. You know, it's got a nice little bit of that, a little burst of it. Has it held up for 5 years? I think so. I think it's not bad at all. It's a nice sipper. Probably one that would be fun to share. And it is still reminiscent of that original mole I remember. And it's creeping up on me like that. That prickly heat is still in here, guys. Again, cinnamon, a little bit of that. It's again playing into the spice and into the heat of the beer, but the heat's very subsided. Again, aged 5 years. Not crazy. It's just that spice kind of is holding on for for a pretty dominant way there. It's just it's hanging on to the taste buds and the back of the throat. So rating, not my favorite beer overall, because this is a lot for the taste buds, but it held up 5 years later. It's still good, and I'd still rank this a very solid 3.89 out of 5. I do still enjoy it. I'd like to just sip it a little bit at a time. Want a little bit more coffee. It's faded a bit. But overall, very good beer still 5 years later, guys. Yeah, the Mole 2019 from Griffin Claw. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pour a beer, pour Michigan beer.